My name is Marcel alongside my bestie Ronald, and we are going to talk about what's happening in the Ontario market, specifically mainly GTHA this week. Keeping you updated. There's a lot to discuss. Ronald, what are you seeing in your purview?
Yeah, well, in my preview, I've certainly seen a lot of great articles come across, a lot of great sort of insights from clients as well. A lot of feedback coming in. And I know I have some great topics that I want to share here today, or headlines, I should say, because, we're in a strange time right now. We got a housing crisis, right? So some of the things that I'm gonna look at today and share is like we're looking at a housing crisis and their promises that were given from all levels of government, particularly the federal government. So there is this idea of the Build Canada homes. So that's something that I want to certainly discuss here today. There's also Bill 17 coming in from the provincial government and how that's going to be modifying a lot of the laws surrounding building and infrastructure and so forth. So I want to certainly just take a stab at that. And if we got the time, I definitely want to take a quick chat and a look at what it is prefabrication manufactured homes. How is that going to support getting us out or digging us out of this pit of a housing crisis, right?
Sounds good. Sounds good. All of that is part of the exciting Bill 17. Looking forward to hearing about that. On my end, I'm really concerned with this condo market. Found this interesting article about homeowners being stuck in a market shift, and kind of the dream of home ownership vanishing. Super interesting. And then on the other side is the condo crash. So why are condos crashing? And we are in a housing crisis. Very interesting dichotomy happening there. So, lots to chop up this week. Let's get into it. Yeah. So, this is the article I found on Toronto homeowners being stuck. And really just a quick one on this. A few quick key points as to what's happening here. There are challenges by homeowners amidst rising interest rates and declining home values. Homeowners like this individual here, Jordan, are feeling stuck and unable to move up. And this is, I've heard this from a few of my clients as well. Unable to get out of their existing condo and move to the dream of, a detached, a semi-detached, or whatever, maybe a land more land-oriented home. What's your thoughts here, Ron?
What's the reason for that? Is it because like mortgages are hard to get, like just to refinance, or like is there just the equity just doesn't exist anymore?
No, I think what it is a lot of these people, they got in lower interest rates, when and now they're coming up for renewals, and their interest rate is much higher, right? So you've got a high interest rate, you've also got a declining property value. Therefore, if you sell now, you haven't built that equity, right? That you tried to that you hope to have had in the last 3 5 years, right? So in essence, you're kind of trapped, and maybe waiting for the next cycle. Hopefully, condo markets come back in the next 5 years.
No, I definitely see that, and for that reason, that's why the condo market currently is saturated. Like it's I think we're at a 10-year, multi-decade, in fact, like supply, right? It's just so much, and I'm sure the numbers are there, but really and truly, what it is we want to see is that somehow there's a plan and that's put in place, because if these units can't move, so to speak, right? If inventory essentially stalls, then what will happen? Builders are going to stop building. And if builders stop building, then what does that mean? Then demand is going to catch up with supply, right? Eventually, right? And then what will happen? Because we know it takes a long while for these units to come to play. And right now, I think there's a lot of companies entering into receivership. In fact, there's a big one downtown, right?
Yeah, one right at one blower. That's been in receivership for quite some time. It's under construction now, but it's under construction under receivership. So, um, yeah, no, this is definitely a big problem. Let's follow up with the other issue, which which we found, is around the condo market, which is slowing down. Kind of that's a good step off. Um, and we're in a housing crisis. So, this word housing crisis, I'm gonna challenge it a bit. We'll dive into this. Obviously, this is going to be a big theme of what we always talk about. But are we really in a housing crisis, or is there a problem with housing right now and its affordability? So the terms are often thrown around, but let's jump into this one here. Um, really, like you just mentioned, we've got condos crashing right now, so you've got prices dropping. I heard from one large builder in the city that 30% of their units are not closing. That's a major issue. So that people are coming up. The value that they purchased it for is a lot less than the current value, and their mortgage is going to be based on the lesser of purchase price or appraised value. So that's a that's the conundrum that's happening right now. And then there's this whole uncertainty in the market right now from investors that most of these people are investors, and homeowners for that matter, but most majority investors that are they don't really know what's happening next as a result of kind of world issues, tariffs, etc. And a lot of them are walking away from these units.
That's really interesting point though, because honestly, like this is the ecosystem of buildings, right? Especially high-rise towers. Developers will not succeed without investors, and for, let's just say, speculators, people that are just going to buy these units. They're going to buy these units in their big pre-sale launches, right? These developers have their big pre-sale. People are going to buy them up, investors and so forth, just because this is how the ecosystem works. Right now, if you were to take the investors out of the equation, what will actually happen? I think right now, I think there's only two projects that are currently like on like in pre-sale, right? And I think there is a real reduction in actual available units or stats, right? That are even coming out. So this slowdown in the market, it is reflective of the economic crisis that we're facing, but also there will have downstream impact, because everyone's going to hit pause right now, Marcel. Everyone's going to hit pause, and then what will happen is we will end up in a situation where it is demand is going to come back roaring, and we won't have supply, and we end up into the same sort of bucket of like affordability. Like now we're looking down the barrel where we don't have affordable housing, and housing affordability is eroded completely at that point again. So, it's a really tough decision, I think, that has to be made. And, I think that really gives a good segue into what it is the government is planning to do when you say so. What's the government plans, right?
Yeah, let's jump into this Bill 17. Just to kick that off, I think the problem with that developers are having now and having to hit pause. There's a few interesting things that can come out of this, right? Like, first of all, the projects are very difficult to pencil, and is Bill 17 going to address some of that, right? Why don't you kick that off?
Yeah, sure thing. Like, I mean, look, there's lots to be said about what it is actually happening. And I think really one of the main things we want to look at here is, why is there a Bill 17? There is certainly a lack of housing. And the federal government have a plan to build, if I'm not mistaken, is 3.5 million homes in the next decade, so ending in 2030. Then Ontario obviously got, sorry?
The CMHC stat. That's the CMHC stat that you talked about.
CMHC. So that's what they need. That's what they need to build. Like, so essentially to house, to bring house home ownership, and make it more affordable, right? For basically the citizens of Canada. Ontario now has this 1.5 million target. And then of course that's spread across many municipalities, 50 in particular. And there's just so much bureaucracy involved that's actually like creating like a bottleneck essentially. Like, we're not just building code, not just policy from a zoning standpoint, and from a planning standpoint, but also from a resourcing, like how they're going to find labor to build these things. So Bill 17 is really designed to try to eliminate or reduce the pressure on, or the downward pressure that's actually prohibiting the sort of proliferation of more like just more home construction, right? And that's something that we're seeing that's happening on both levels. So the Ontario government, they just came out with this Bill 17, which is protect Ontario in just rough times of tariffs, and then also to build more homes faster and smarter. So they are also taking on a bit of a sustainable twist onto it, right? But then,
Yeah.
look, I mean,
How is that balanced?
yeah, how is that balanced? The balance between sustainability and
Building more.
yeah, that'll be a good question, because that balance,
That's something for another. That's something
well,
for another
well,
another episode. But
to be quite honest, this is something that they're trying to address. But I think they struck a happy medium, at least in some areas. I won't say on the sustainability piece because look, the building code have some requirements, and I'll be honest, like I've seen many cities throughout Ontario that are launching their own sustainable standards. And these builders, on the other hand, are saying, look, man, like it's a moving target. Every city that we build in, different requirements. Like how do we stack up to this? How are we gonna make this streamlined enough that we can actually build homes faster? So that's something that they're looking at. But one of the other factors in this Bill 17 is DCs. And I don't know if I think there was a report that came out that basically showed like how some cities actually increased in the last decade, had increases of over 100, 200%, and some cities even more. They're DCs, man. This is outrageous. But I question, is this a cost, this DCs? If the government were to reduce them or eliminate them, would builders actually be able to pass that on to end users, purchasers, buyers, people that actually need housing?
well, what do you mean? Why would a builder, if it's eliminated, what would they have to pass on? Oh, the savings. Oh, okay, okay. I think look at a builder and a home and a constructor will never typically pass on savings, right? Like those savings will always be eroded in the value chain. And eventually, reach profit margin in some sort of vertical company that they own. So I think you'll need some control mechanisms in place, right? And Bill 17 is not saying they're being eliminated. It's more they're being the timing, and the timing is being deferred, right? So that helps from a cash flow perspective for a developer. But they're not necessarily being eliminated. So yeah, if they were to be eliminated, in that case, then you'd need some control mechanisms in place that that got through to the end user, and that's kind of where the affordable kind of housing market plays a little bit more, I would say.
Like we can't eliminate development charges, right? Like should not be eliminated, and I don't think anyone is asking for that. But I do think like it needs to be reduced, which they are making moves towards. But on that same note, is like once that reduction is actually in place, will the actual purchaser actually, would that be reflected in the purchase price of a home? And if it's not, then I think there should be some mechanism, as you just mentioned, that's in place to penalize bad actors.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah. So let's continue on Bill 17. What else you got for us, Ron? What else is in Bill 17?
Bill 17, I mean, there's a lot in there to unpack. What I would say is that it's actually that's in its second reading. Probably it may be actually reach a royal assent, like adopted and reach a royal assent, probably by the end or by maybe the beginning of June. Who knows? But it's still going through reading. They're debating. The politicians are debating the merits of all of this. So this is good. The other thing that I'll kind of say that there's some changes in there for infrastructure. So roads to kind of streamline the process for building more streets and roads, and eliminate a lot of the sort of paperwork that kind of needs to happen. And again, of course, to who that benefits, again, nobody knows. But I guess the whole idea here is to basically build more homes faster. That's the whole premise for all of this. And maybe on a smaller scale, I really, because I work with a lot of small scale developers, anywhere between 2 to 4 stories and anywhere between 2 to 20, 25 units and so forth, designing and basically offering development planning advisory services. And I would say that one of the things that I saw in there that's really encouraging is that there is a framework or mechanism that they're trying to put in place that would allow sort of minor variances to have to not just pass the four test, right? And not to get too technical here, but there's a test that has to be passed, four tests for zoning, planning, character of the neighborhood, and whether it's minor, but also that minor, like they're trying to make that minor aspect of the four test measurable. So is minor if it's actually X% variation from what the law requires or the zoning requires. So
Right.
I think that's going to be extremely helpful and add a bit more predictability to that whole process of going to the committee of adjustment.
Yeah, the unintended consequence there is if the municipalities move the, move the needle on what's required, then you could end up with a net zero variance request. So that should be interesting to see how that pans out. Yeah. Anything else for us on Bill 17 you want to cover, Ron, today?
Well, hey, I'll say this: we'll definitely be talking about Bill 17 in future episodes because there's so much to unpack here. But for now, that's all I got for you on that, my friend.
Excellent, excellent. So I think on that note, there's a lot that we want to cover in our next session. We've got interest rates that have moved up as a result of bond yields, and we want to jump in to some more of Bill 17. I know there's that whole $26 billion Carney has promised. So we want to definitely unpack that a little bit more. Anything else in particular, you want to jump into, Ron?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the prefab. But look, this is a big topic. I think we might need to get some. We might need to create a panel out of this because this is such an interesting topic. I know you were mentioning you were part of a study group that sort of kind of really looked in depth in this, and I'd really like to pick your brain.
Yeah, we've got a report, so we'll jump into that on our next session. That'll be nice and juicy. Lots of stuff to pick apart there. Lots of stuff to solve with innovation. On that note, I think that's a good note to sign off.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, I just want to say here, if you're a listener, new listener to this segment here, I want to say that you should like and subscribe to this video and leave a comment, because if you leave a comment related to any of the topics here, any news headlines that we mentioned, or you'd like us to expand on anything, please leave a comment. We certainly address it and we do respond to all of the comments. So don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Ronald, or Marcel. We're excited to share and keep you guys abreast of what's happening in real estate in Ontario.
Until next time, we'll see you later.